Hi there, how we doing? We doing good? That's great. So, today I am back here in another video that would normally go up on the Mending Minds YouTube channel, but is instead here because I feel as if I can reach a wider audience. I don't have an exact name for what I'm going to call this series just yet, but it might just be called Mending Minds. If you guys have any, like, I guess, general ideas for, I guess, a name for the series other than Mending Minds, even though I think I'm pretty set on that idea, make sure to leave it down in the comments below, and, you know, maybe you can convince me to change it, but I don't think I plan to change it anytime soon. But let's just get right into the topic I have today. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's a bit more specific than the last one. Today I want to talk about how you can properly plan out what you want to do for your future after you leave high school, if you've grown up with a I guess more unstable home. I feel like that seemed a bit awkwardly worded, but so let's be honest right now. There's a lot of people in the world as it currently stands that have unfortunately grown up with a very unstable home, and they haven't been able to experience a proper childhood. And in some ways, this could even lead to some mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, trauma, any of this kind of stuff. It is not just depression. This could be anything with an unstable, you know, home could literally lead to any different mental illness. Like, I'm not saying probably any, but it could be a lot of them. And today I want to talk about why it is important to have a plan for what you want to do afterwards in order to keep yourself happy, and how you can execute this plan. So, taking it from the top real quick, I feel like I should mention why it is important that you have a certain plan for moving out and what you want to do after high school. The plan itself isn't necessarily the moving out bit, but it's more or less what you're going to do afterwards that's going to be able to keep your mental health well and in check. The reason it is so important is because of the fact that if you jump into the idea of, if your basic idea for getting out of the home is just by getting out of this unstable family and that's it, and you have nothing else planned beyond that, this could lead to a lot of problems. For instance, you actually could end up being unhappy still because of the fact that you didn't necessarily have a plan. And a lot of times when you don't have this plan and your mind is more focused on something else, such as trying to get out of an unstable family, you're not going to have you're not going to have something good on you, and it's more or less going to be something that's going to weigh you down. Maybe not as much as when you were with your unstable family, but it's still going to weigh you down a lot, and more than it should, especially since you're away from what you've dealt with for so many years. One thing that can commonly be mentioned about a lot of people who grow up in an unstable family is that they oftentimes mature a little bit quicker. Just a little bit quicker. This is mainly because of the fact that they weren't necessarily grown up with this kooky, wacky type person. Like, I mean, obviously they could still have that kooky, wacky type personality, but oftentimes the reason they may mature could be because of the fact that they are really trying to prepare themselves for when they can move out, and those are going to be the people that can plan stuff. That is more of the fundamentals of your planning rather than what you want to do as like a future career or something like that. You know, it's just more of the fundamentals, which I'm not going to say that and brush it off like it's nothing, because the fundamentals might just be some of the most important parts of this. But it's also important to know what you want to do as a future career, because again, if there's one thing that also leaves a lot of adults miserable and also keeping them in a more depressed state, is being at some kind of dead-end job. A job that doesn't really pay much, or one that they don't necessarily see themselves enjoying, or not something they could see themselves having fun with. Oftentimes with someone who's grown up in an unstable family, if they jump into it very quickly, they don't have a plan, oftentimes what will happen is that situation will happen. They'll end up being in a job where they might not get paid that much, or they might not enjoy it, or even both, which, you know, I don't like to say that a double whammy like that could happen easily when you don't have a plan, but it kind of can. So you want to be able to take into consideration a few different factors, and I would say there's three very fundamental factors that you want to kind of focus on as you're thinking of this plan. And obviously, if you guys have any other plans in mind, like if you have any other things that you should be thinking about, make sure to leave them down in the comments below, because, you know, I do love your feedback. But the first thing you want to think about, and this is a very, very important one, can you financially support yourself well enough? It's very important that if you're going to be thinking about this kind of stuff, you want to think about that if you move in just somewhere else, away from your family, you got to think to yourself, are you able to pay the bills? Are you able to do all the adult stuff that a lot of people need to do? Can you afford food? Can you basically just support yourselves like an adult should? This is a big thing that I think a lot of people don't think about if it's someone who doesn't have a plan. And the weirdest thing about that is that it's one of the most important, if not the most important. In my opinion, it's actually the most important thing that you should be thinking about. Because essentially, if you're not able to financially support yourself, you're going to be left somewhere where you're in a situation where, okay, I can't financially support myself. Who can I go to, you know, be able to be somewhere where I'm not living out on the streets or something like that? Now, essentially, if you grew up during your childhood having quite a bit of friends, they might be able to help you out a bit, especially if they were supportive of helping you during these troubling times. As much as I do not like to think about a worst case scenario, say maybe you don't have that many friends that don't know much about you or what you go through and wouldn't really understand it. In that kind of situation, the thing that might straight up come to your mind, and this thought might even come to your head even if you do have people you can stay with, is to go straight back to your parents. And this can just lead you back into the cycle that you were once stuck in. So that is why I personally think being able to financially support yourself is the absolute most important thing to do in that type of situation. Because if you can't financially support yourself, it could end up leading to something as bad as being stuck in being right back into a place where you were unhappy for a majority of your life up to that point. The second thing you want to keep in mind is obviously the future career. The future career is important because of the fact that, yes, maybe if you have a job that may pay well, you also want to make sure, though, do you enjoy doing this? Because yes, you may be able to financially support yourself, but do you enjoy doing what you do and getting that financial stability out of it? Because if you don't, that could, again, lead to some more mental health issues. It probably can't broaden how much these mental health issues are, like how at the beginning of the video I mentioned how like living in an unstable family could lead to a lot of different mental health issues. I wouldn't say that being in a unstable work environment could lead to as many issues, but that also shouldn't mean you should just brush it off and say, okay, no, it can't happen to me. But it can happen, and that's why I think it's very important to think about what you want to do ahead of time. And a lot of times college will be best for what you want to essentially, you know, do. Because again, a lot of these jobs that people are a lot more miserable in are the jobs that aren't required to go to college for. And those are also typically the ones that don't pay as well, and which could also lead you more back into the financial stability, you know, area of what I talked about. It's very important that you're able to have both of these factors, because again, both of these things you got to keep in mind, they both play into each other. And the third thing, I wouldn't say applies to everyone, but if you personally feel as if one issue with your depression other than, or any mental health issue, other than your family is loneliness, this is one thing you may want to keep in mind. It's very important that if you feel as if your depression is also driven by loneliness, that you maybe have a roommate or something. Now, of course, this is also taking into consideration the factor of, am I just going to be moving into an apartment, or am I going to be getting a full-on house? Which, if you're going to be thinking about this stuff and moving in, moving into somewhere else pretty soon after you graduate, you're more or less going to want to think more of the apartment, because again, let's be honest, houses are very, very expensive, and unless you plan this like you had that plan set for a hot minute, you might not be able to financially support yourself, or better wording of that, you might not be able to afford it at all. So if you personally feel as if your depression is somewhat driven by loneliness, but for the most part is driven by unstable family, make sure you have someone who might be there for you. If you generally don't feel like you can find anyone at the time of you getting your apartment, try and go meet new people. If you have a hard time doing that, I suggest going back to my last video that I made on this, where I kind of explained a little bit on how you can possibly make a friendship work and just gain one. And maybe at the end of the day, they could move in with you and you guys could have a really close relationship. Friendship relationship, I do want to emphasize that. Maybe if you wanted to go beyond that, you know, that's your thing. But it's very important that you have that type of person with you if your depression is driven by loneliness. Because if you're living alone, yeah, you're away from that unstable family, but that loneliness side of your depression is going to kick right in. So yeah, that was my video on basically how to properly plan out moving out quickly if you grew up in an unstable family and you just want to get out. I think this video could speak a lot to more people than it may sound, because again, this is a very specific topic to be talking about, but it's one that's very, very important in my opinion. And I feel like this could be a bit more relatable than what meets the eye, because, you know, it may sound uncommon, but guys, trust me, people thinking about this kind of stuff is not, it's very common, trust me. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video, and I will see you recruits in the next video. Peace. Just